What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 31 Days of Horror. I am your host, Mood616, and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. Alrighty, guys, 31 Days of Horror Volume 9, Day 17 is coming at you live and direct. Alright, guys, so we're going to take it back to the 90s, specifically 1990, with a film that was actually deemed to be completely lost at one point. Word on the street is that it showed a couple times in the early 90s and then just fell into obscurity to the point where it was actually deemed a lost film. Now, the fine folks over at TerrorVision have conjured this one up somehow, found some really amazing elements, and give this one its full proper release. Here on 4K, we have 1990's Arbor Day. Yes, we have Arbor Day. Absolutely bananas that this one has been resurrected from the graves and given a 4K release, which is totally batshit insane. But of course, only the fine folks over at TerrorVision could actually do something like that. This is a film I'd actually never heard of. I don't think most people had, because it was literally deemed a lost film. So again, going into the golden age of collecting, these are the type of things that we're getting. It's absolutely blowing my mind. So I'm not complaining. All right. So synopsis on Arbor Day. So Arbor Day basically follows our main character, Elmer. You know, it's Arbor Day, and he's out in the woods with his parents. They're out there to plant a tree because that's what you do on Arbor Day. And one thing leads to another, and his parents get attacked by a grizzly bear, mauled and killed. And then he falls into like a catatonic coma for like 20 years. He wakes up on the 20-year anniversary of his parents' death due to like a doctor and a nurse and stuff. They're all making fun of him while he's in his coma and stuff like that. He wakes up out of it and goes on a murderous killing spree. All right, so that's basically the premise of the film. My thoughts on Arbor Day. Now, Arbor Day, first and foremost, is a comedy at heart. Then, you know, it's obviously a slasher film. But this one is more or less, it lives in the vein of like a Student Bodies without being like a full-blown it's not like a full-blown spoof, you know what I mean? Like, Student Bodies was spoofing slasher films at the time. And if you kind of mix that with, like, I don't know, man. I don't know, just any type of horror comedies and stuff like that. So Cannibal the Musical is actually a good one to bring up because there is some funny-ass songs in this. This is not a musical, but if you mix, like, Student Bodies and Cannibal the Musical, you kind of get this movie a little bit. So but yeah, Arbor Day, man, is absolutely ridiculous, over-the-top stuff. So Elmer wakes up out of his 20-year coma and goes on a killing spree. And you know right away this movie is going to be super goofy when, you know, the first person he kills, he puts him up on the wall and he starts ripping out his guts, and the guy turns to the camera and says, "Oh, he's really cleaning me out." I'm just like, oh my god, that's ridiculous. But yeah, so this one really does kind of focus on the comedy at first. So Elmer wants to make his way back to his house, where we have 6 characters that have made their way to that house, of course. You know, they're in the woods, they're going there to party, do some R&R, your very typical type setup and stuff like that. The thing is, with all these characters, they mostly feel like they're fucking Scooby-Doo characters. Like, we have this one really obnoxious dude that's kind of like a fat version of Shaggy. You know, he's wearing this foam mesh hat with these big boobies on top, and he's wearing this stupid goofy shirt, and his acting is completely over the top, bad wigs. You know, this movie has it all. It's got the bad wigs, over obnoxious characters, overacting, cliched characters. But with all that said, though, it has this crazy, legitimate charm about it. I mean, the filmmaker here was trying to make a legit comedy horror film, and I think he kind of succeeded. Even though the comedy in the film can be a little bit childish at times, not as smart as Cannibal the Musical for sure. And even like Student Bodies and stuff, like there's like, I wouldn't say it's as low as like just straight up dick and fart jokes and stuff like that, but there's a lot of gags that are kind of silly and stuff, but I think they work for the overall tone of the film. So when you're watching a slasher film, it's really about the kills and stuff, and I think some of the kills are actually pretty funny. Like when the bear actually decapitates the father in the beginning of the movie, I actually laughed my ass off at that. It was pretty funny. But there's one kill in the film I thought was pretty cool where, you know, Elmer, who actually wears this mask, it's like a fucking sunflower seed. It's like cardboard and paper. It's the cheapest looking mask ever. He's wearing overalls. He just looks like you're the boy next door. It's ridiculous. But he basically shoves this hose down this guy's throat and fills him up with water until he explodes. And I was like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense. And of course, it's Arbor Day, so all the kills have to do with like tools that you would use to like do, you know, your planting and, you know, and all that type of stuff for Arbor Day. But yeah, these 6 characters are very much cliched and stuff like that. You know, you've got the one hippie kind of drug dude. You got the over obnoxious fat guy that's, like I said, he's like the fat version of fucking Shaggy. But then the weird thing about this collection of people is that there's a kid. He's like a 10-year-old genius kid that the entire movie is like down in the basement, like stirring up all these gadgets and stuff because he's a total brainiac in every type of, every type of subject in school and stuff like that. So he's down there. He's fully convinced that like the reason why these people are going missing, they're getting killed and stuff like that, his paranoia actually is correct. But he's like down in this basement doing like all this shit, the whole fucking movie and stuff. There's this really funny montage scene. So in the contrast, there actually is a detective angle to this movie. And this detective says to his wife, he's like, I can't detective on an empty stomach. I need to eat something. He basically eats this turkey dinner through the entire movie. It's like this running joke from like 5 minutes in the movie until like the third act starts. And he's like eating this fucking turkey dinner. And while this kid's making these gadgets and stuff, and it's like this huge montage scene, I actually laughed pretty hard at that. I was like, that's actually kind of clever. It's pretty funny. So it's like, run with this joke, run with this joke, run with this joke. And there's like stupid gigs where, this girl's on the phone kind of calling for help and stuff like that. And the dude's outside trying to cut to the phone line. Well, he cuts the power to the house. And he's like, oh shit, I cut the wrong one. Then he's trying to cut the phone line and he can't cut it. So then he repairs the the fucking power line and they've got power again. It's like, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's so stupid. But very, very enjoyable, man. I mean, a lot of the dialogue and stuff can be a little bit obnoxious. Like I said, the one Shaggy character in this film, once he dies, you're like, oh God. Now the tone of the film just seems to get a little bit better. He was a little bit over obnoxious for myself, a character that you just like want to die. I think that's kind of the purpose of that, but overall, man, I mean, a lot of the kills, they were done differently and shit like that. What happens to little boy is funny as hell. Yeah, this is a weird one. It runs about 75 minutes. And I feel like the third act in this movie is like it's like half an hour of the movie because something happens like with all these characters after they all get picked off and stuff like that. And then the cop finally shows up and that's when shit kind of goes batshit. It's like, the filmmaker just didn't want this fucking movie to end, and he like throws in this big kung fu scene, and they're like playing Monopoly, and like it just gets goofy as shit, dude. It's like, it's actually quite funny. I'm not going to say this is going to work for everybody. If you're not into like horror comedies or comedy horrors, I would say this is more comedy before, even though there is like gory kills and stuff, but there's super goofy gory kills and stuff throughout the film. But the whole third act, it just keeps going and going and going and going, and it's just... It's like he had so many ideas, just wanted to throw them all in there. And I'm saying, a lot of it did work. It's actually really funny. The whole Monopoly thing, I was like scratching my head. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? But all in all, man, it's a charming film that was made by a filmmaker that really set out to make a comedy horror film. And I think he succeeded. I mean, do all the jokes work? Fuck no. They don't all work, but they're still likable, fun jokes that you're just like, oh yeah. And there's a lot going on in the film. I mean, I give the filmmakers credit for, making a film for under $50,000 on film. It is in 4:3. And I will say the transfer on this is really fantastic. It looks good. It sounds good. It's dubbed. So it has that dub quality to it and stuff like that, but it does sound really good. But I was amazed at how well this thing looked. Like the elements are crystal clear. Perfect. There's no blemishes in the elements at all. So this thing was obviously lost but stored properly, which is really cool. So, yeah, I mean, these movies, generally when I see like bad wigs and bad costumes and just all that type of shit, you just think like the mid-2000s when filmmakers were purposely trying to make bad movies. And you might get that appeal right away popping this in, because if you've seen a lot of those movies and you go back to something like this where they weren't trying to do that. That's just the way the costumes were. Like, they were meant to be goofy, but it was meant to be fun and smart and actually good. I was amazed that some of the soundtrack songs were actually written for the movie because they play right into it, and it's actually kind of funny and stuff. So, which hence why I kind of did the contrast to Cannibal Musical. Of course, they did their own music for that too, but totally two different films, but in the same vein. But yeah, Arbor Day, man. I'm very, very glad I watched this. I gotta say though, man, like, this is not going to be for everybody. Like I said, I feel like this is a mood one. Like, if you were like in a good, happy, fun mood, this is something you throw in with your buddies, drinking a bunch of beer or smoking some blunts or whatever you're doing, man. You definitely put this one on in like a crowd setting and stuff like that. Or you can watch it by yourself if you just want to be perked up. But if you're in a shitty mood and stuff and you like don't want anything to do with this, I can see this one not being for you. But I mean, if you're into these type of movies, give it a shot. I'm not like the hugest fan of like student bodies and stuff like that. Like, I like those spoof movies. For the most part, it's like any spoof movie. Some of the jokes work, some of them don't. All these type of movies are like that. They're never 100%. And plus, comedy's so subjective. People have different tastes in comedy and shit. Like, I probably laughed at some shit in this movie that like no one's laughing at. I find humor in like the smallest like little weird details and shit that's like in the background and stuff. And yeah, like shit like the running joke with the cop eating the entire film until he shows up and it just goes batshit, you know, shit like that. But I don't know. Arbor Day, fun film. I'm going to give this one a solid 7 out of 10. Very, very good release from TerraVision here. I can't even stress enough. I mean, obviously, I haven't been able to dig into it. I just picked it up. So, but if you like what you heard, give Arbor Day a shot. I think it's actually very unique and kind of a cool one, man. I mean, anytime you could just conjure up a film that's deemed lost in today's world and it gets a full-on great release like this, you got to support it, man. You got to support it. I mean, people always hate on 90s horror and stuff like that, but there's a lot of good stuff out there. You just really gotta dig for it. Not saying it's a great film, but it's fun. It is fun. So anyways, that's gonna conclude day 17 here on the 31 Days of Horror, volume 9. And I'll be back tomorrow with day 18, and day 18 is going to be a banger. It's actually gonna be a rewatch for me. I haven't seen the movie in years, and it is batshit. So stay tuned for that one. And as per usual, guys, deuces!